running on the streets of Philadelphia. It's freezing cold. And I just started to feel something welling inside. And they go, "Sly, are you ready?" I go, "I'm not, but Rocky is." I was a complete unknown, even unknown to myself. And I had this idea. A lot of people were feeling kind of the way I was, going nowhere fast. And I didn't know whether I had it or not. So I wrote this story about an underdog, a person who wasn't very appreciated. And I was given a break by United Artists, and now you had to put up or shut up. So I couldn't believe my good fortune, and every day we'd go to the studio and work on the script a little bit. Of course, I had a bit of an odd personality, I guess. Maybe I was born to play this part, I don't know, but it just seemed to fit into all the things that I sort of believed in. Anyway, we started working on experimental ideas about boxing. There had been many boxing films, like maybe over 300 made in Hollywood, and they weren't very successful, so I couldn't believe my good luck here when they're doing a boxing film about this character. But the point is, it wasn't a boxing film. It was a story about obsolescence, about not getting an opportunity in life, and more importantly, eventually, a serious love story. And he happens to be a boxer. So the relationship comes a little bit later on, but it's the key to the whole movie. John Avild's in the background. He always took these, he's driving me crazy with these 8mm films. But here we are, so I'm glad he did it. But at the time I thought, what a waste of film. Now, Mike Westmore, who was a great makeup artist, part of the Westmore family, he started doing all the experiments. Here again, I'm just overdoing everything. Makeup tests. And it was great, but I ended up with barely any eyebrows left for the rest of my life, so there is that. At one time, I actually wanted Rocky to look very, very punchy, and I thought, why don't you glue my nose to the side of my face? So they got this kind of colostomy bag glue, and it was so bad, it looked like a cartoon, like I'd run into a wall, like Gumby. So anyway, as you can see, I took things to kind of extremes. I mean, it looks like a lost clam. We got lucky with Burgess Meredith, who is a world-class actor with kind of 50 years experience, and he took it very serious. He was fantastic and developed this character that was based on a real character, and he had all the mannerisms.
I did real good last night. You should have seen me.
Big deal.
You should have seen me too.
Hey, kid, you ever think about retiring?
No.
You think about it.
My friend Stan Shaw in the back, great guy. I didn't know anything. I talked a good game, like, yeah, I'm a good boxer. I didn't know how to box anything except maybe oranges. But I was willing to try. The character was not supposed to be a gifted fighter. He was gifted in other ways. He just could take an incredible amount of punishment, and he was fighting for an ideal. He had no illusions that he was a winner. He just wanted an opportunity. Then we came across this amazing guy, Carl Weathers, the greatest film boxer of all time. This man could move. Well, he was a world-class athlete and a great actor, but God, could he move. This is us really beginning to figure it out. There was a situation happening. They had hired a choreographer, and the choreographer was used to doing old-fashioned films, like you hit me, I hit you, you hit me, I hit you. And that's what was normally done in a close-up of two guys just sort of, as we would say, shoe shining. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I thought, you know, let's try to do something different. Oh, look who just popped up, my brother. He was a great singer, is a great singer. And I thought, well, since I can't afford anyone else, I'll use him. Now here's him in the ring, really showing his love and appreciation for the job. Appreciate it, like tackling me, knocking me down. Of course, I'm trying to make him feel good here by getting a concussion. Back to Carl, he's improving a great deal. And I said to the stunt coordinator, I said, why doesn't Carl come out and hit me like 4 jabs on the right? He goes, that isn't the way it is. I said, well, how about 3 jabs on the right? And he goes, no, just follow my thing. I said, well, I want to see something different. He goes, okay, I quit. So he left, and I was stuck, and everyone looked at me like, hey, who are you? Well, this is the guy, actually, right before he left. His name was, I think, Statler or something like that. Nice guy, but he had his old-fashioned way of doing something, and I wanted it to look as close to real as possible. And usually boxing films, the actors really were not in any kind of great shape, and they didn't work any kind of choreography. It was sort of done on the fly. You hit me, I hit you, and no one was ever in really excellent shape. So we started writing it out. The director said, hey, why don't you write it out? And I thought, okay, you mean like a dance? Absolutely like a dance. Then we hired Jimmy Nickerson and got in some semi-pros here who blocked out the actual real boxing. And I would study and go, that's believable, that's believable. And then I started to borrow things from the world's greatest fights and condense them into moments in our film. So everything you've ever seen in Rocky has actually happened before. In the back there's famous Gene LaBelle, world famous stuntman and a judo champion. This is all practice footage, and he's working on Jimmy Nickerson, who insists on him actually hitting him a lot, which I don't know what was going through Jimmy's head, and he actually did get knocked down. There's Gene LaBelle practicing his overacting as his as a referee. You know, I've never saw a referee get into a full squat, but why not? This is footage that was never seen in the movie. It was supposed to be in the movie. Rocky is watching Apollo knock all these people out. Mickey is going, you don't have a chance, basically. This is a real fighter named Sonny Shields, father of the world-class fighter named Randy Shields. He thought Carl was just an actor. I said, he's a powerful man, and he blasted him and eventually knocked him down again, for real. We never used this footage, which is unfortunate. It was a work in progress. So in between setups, I would constantly be rewriting and rewriting and trying to make this thing work for the budget that we had, which was nothing. And our locations were pretty, pretty sparse. But, I think that worked out for the best. I hadn't figured out Rocky's color combination, so this is just us practicing basically choreography and makeup tests. And you can see like the ropes hanging on the ground. This was, again, just for us. Too much smoke or too much makeup. We were trying to figure out like this. Hey, anybody want a hamburger? How you doing? Like a little bit of overacting, putting the cart in front of the horse here. And Carl, again, this is mostly a makeup test. This place was freezing, by the way. It was in the dead of winter, so it was not conducive to moving around a lot. But again, we did what we could because we were borrowing the Olympic Auditorium. And we're seeing how close we could get with the punches. Those are actual, 8-ounce gloves that are not doctored up. And when you get hit with them, it's my eye is closed. Your depth perception is way off. So this is what these rehearsals helped with, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Oh, there's my father. We were sitting around before the film, kind of figuring out the logistics with the set designer. And it was great to be part of all this. I didn't know what I was doing, but it sounded good and it looked good. And we're pretty passionate about it. But there's something good about not knowing everything and just throwing yourself headlong into it. Made my father the bell ringer. That was interesting. He'd always ring the bell about 20 seconds late, and I would take a beat, and I kept going, is this kind of Freudian by any chance? That's me wearing my incredibly expensive York shirt. Kind of hung up on the tank top at the time. I don't know why. Storyboards is something I'd never seen before. It was very interesting. It was laid out what we were supposed to do. This whole kind of ritual of two men getting ready to face one another, Rocky being incredibly inferior, and Carl, or Apollo Creed, just taking it as another day in the life of a champion. No big deal. But all these maneuvers here, like the Vicks and the greasing up, this is pretty much what we were taught by authentic trainers. Rocky knows he's basically going to get slaughtered, so he's just praying he doesn't get hurt too much. And Carl, it's the first time we actually see him get serious in the film as Apollo Creed. You won't believe this camera. This is so gigantic. Everything we had was, I don't know, just scraping things together. This gigantic camera that we had to lash to the car. They don't even exist anymore. This fella here, his name was Jimmy Gambino. He was also a trainer. His father was a trainer. And I thought I'd put him in a movie because he was really some kind of character. And it worked out.
Don't you think you ought to take a rest?
No, my back is hurt.
Your back?
My back is hurt. You deaf?
I'm short.
That's us getting prepared again, me being very mature between takes. This is how I prepare for a movie, by chasing Adrian with a meat cleaver. You think that's a little odd, perhaps? We tried to keep it loose. It was a lot of fun in a way, and I tend to not want to walk around all moody, and I just try to keep it relaxed, because if you're relaxed, the rest of the crew is relaxed, and then you turn it on when you have to. So you can see me with Joe Spinell, who played Mr. Gazzo, John Alverson, makeup man, Mike Westmore, and we're just having a good time. That hat was a real bone of contention. Nobody wanted me to wear the hat. They wanted me to just be, bareheaded. And I go, So there was a store there, and I bought that hat. This is the director's children. Bought the hat for like $3. And I said, I want to wear the hat. And the producer goes, you can't wear this hat. I go, why? He says, because Gene Hackman wore it in French Connection. I said, so that's the end of hats? So hats are banned? I said, it kind of tops off the character. And I went ahead and used the hat. I've never seen a hat like it. It was like this cheap felt cardboard hat, but it just worked perfectly. And I think made a great impression on the character. I think it just set the whole thing like a suit of armor. It was a costume that he was sort of hiding behind. And then when you see him put on the glasses like this, you realize he's not this real tough specimen. He's kind of nerdy in a way. Oh yeah, this is us in between takes, just hanging out. This is a scene that's amazing. I wrote it for 300 extras. And Adrian was supposed to be taken out on the ice by this incredible ice skater, and he's showing off, and I'm sort of humiliated, and and I get into sort of a beef with the fella. I show up on the set. They said, well, we've had to cut the extras back a little bit. I go, to what? He goes, to none. You're kidding me. I said, how about a heads up? So I went back and I started rewriting immediately. And, well, the proof was in the pudding. It became just the two of us on the ice. And since I can't ice skate, Rocky runs alongside of her. That's George Membley, who was a great character actor and a friend. And it turned out to be 1,000 times better if there had been a big crowd here. So, again, taking the negative and making it a positive. Got very lucky on that day. But that scene sort of set the tone for Rocky's first date. He wasn't used to, being very, what would you say, sophisticated. But I think that was part of his charm, was his honesty.
It's okay. Hey, listen, are you closed to the general public or you just closed to everybody? You know what I mean?
Aren't you skating?
You can see here me really struggling. She was not exactly, ice capades either. We're just struggling out there, which I thought kind of reflected on who they were too. It's like neither one of them is very graceful in life. But together, they're a perfect fit. They really, really are. I almost broke my neck on this about 10 times. This turned out to be very, very good. And you can see where John's rehearsals were absolutely duplicated in reality. So it was a perfect thing.
I tell you, things get pretty rough in the ring.
Again, this is the makeup with Mike Westmore, and we'd be running lines here. So we'd hit the ground running. I like to learn a lot of dialogue a long time before the production, so you can let it go and ad lib and then come back to the script. And Burgess, who's a classically trained actor and I wasn't, was totally on board with that. And he was just fantastic. He's really a consummate performer. I didn't realize it at the time because I'd never worked with anyone that good, but now, as I reflect on it, one of the greatest. This was an actual apartment, believe it or not, and I thought we should add some things that are a bit odd, like a mattress stuck to the wall full of bayonets. Don't explain it, it's just that's the way he lives, in a bowl full of turtles and so on. We couldn't afford a hose to wet down the street, so we'd do it by buckets. Rocky solidifies his relationship with Mickey after a tempestuous brawl a few moments earlier, where he just unloaded on Mickey about being ignored. But that's what made the character. He's just always forgiving. This is my friend Gene Kirkwood. He was very, very important in having the film actually made, and Burt Young, who was fantastic. We start in Philadelphia and we end up here. This is LA, running along the side of the meatpacking place. I don't know exactly why I wrote in a slaughterhouse, but it was just an idea. Like boxers are considered meat. We don't think of them as regular human beings, but they are. They have a lot of heart and soul. They're not just flesh to be hit upon. And so that was somewhat a symbolic move, a little heavy-handed, but I think it worked. And here we are outside, with my dog Butkus, which was actually my dog, and I thought Rocky and the dog looked very much alike, so I wanted them in the movie. And I thought it, again, added a little bit of character to who Rocky was. It was a gift from Adrian. This is a scene that was made up on the spot.
What's that, Burgess, huh? Whose truck is this? Come on.
I was supposed to just be in there. I thought, it'd be great if he just shows up and there's Burt saying, hey, hope you don't mind. I called the television network and I'm basically here to embarrass you. And of course, Rocky takes it in stride and goes along with it because he's that kind of a guy. This place was so magical. I mean, just these streets, I go back there every now and then, It's amazing. They're so small, so narrow, so claustrophobic. The train is just so graphically interesting.
Yo. Yo, you look great.
And then right here, this is where she just exploded. I mean, she became Cinderella. This is what he saw. When he's here at the pet shop, everyone else saw this homely, very, very shy woman. He saw really a beautiful person inside and out. And she really sold it in that moment. This is the game changer. This man's name is Garrett Brown. He's an inventor. He lives in Philadelphia. And just out of luck, he goes, I got this camera called the Steadicam. I go, excuse me? It kind of looks like a vacuum cleaner. But no, this thing was amazing. You could run as fast as you could, be on a bouncy truck, yet the picture is incredibly level. And here we are in this very, very inexpensive film using a revolutionary camera, which really basically revolutionized the business and is used probably on every movie there is around the world. Extraordinary. Yeah, fight night. Carl, we had this idea of him being Uncle Sam. I thought, we're gonna push the envelope here. This probably was so much out of our budget we could barely afford it. The robe they made for me was for a guy who was 6'5". But again, we work it into the movie. Don't you think this robe is kind of baggy? Nah, it looks great, don't worry about it. We don't have many extras, so the camera angles are very, very important to be shooting up. And these little lights you see in the background, which add depth of field, these Christmas lights, they're very effective. And out here, we're starting out working on the choreography that eventually will be almost punch for punch, exactly what happens in the final product. So it's interesting to see how bang, bang.
I don't believe it. Yes, he is.
It worked. I mean, it was shocking. I enjoy seeing this here. Because you never know when you get out there, it could be the biggest waste of time and oh, it looks really phony. But we're able to take it from the gym where you didn't know. I mean, you have to understand, we didn't know what we were doing. No one ever rehearsed for months and months and months and months and months. And boxing films weren't very, very popular, so I thought, are we just really wasting our time? Or is this actually going to translate into something? So every day you go in there, I hope this is just not going to be an embarrassment. From that little gym, it worked in the big picture, punch for punch. And we were able to do this time and time and time again, which is why I always advocate for a long, long, long rehearsal for boxing films. And most people don't do it. It's well worth the effort. Here's Carl just laying it on me. Oh, beautiful. His timing is amazing. It really is. The canvas was interesting. We designed these stars, which was reminiscent of Apollo Creed's trunk. The acting started 6 months earlier in the gym. And he's just hoping it works here. You've been building up to this right here. This is the harder part. How do you keep the audience engaged with the drama that these men are going through and the trauma, what they're going through? This, I believe, is after the show. We're all pretty much wrapped up and having a little bit of barbecue with John and his children. And we're in my Howdy Doody shirt. This is, I guess, yeah, it has to be probably while we're editing because my hair is longer than Bert. Great. We tried to keep this esprit de corps, this kind of family group. Bill Conti, who I cannot express how important he was to this movie. His music just took it to another level. You had classical music in an unclassical film. Very interesting dynamic. They wanted to put in rock music. At one time, they're talking about even Jimi Hendrix. And bringing in Bill, he figured it all out. There's John's children. Hey, Rufus. I believe we opened up in maybe 2 theaters, and this is the place where I was an usher several years earlier, 2 doors away at the Baronet, and I would also work over there at Cinema 2. And now I'm back with a film. That was my beloved manager, Jane Oliver. She was great, and John and his son. And the irony of being in this movie theater, where I used to go back and forth with my brother there all the time, and he was singing on the corner, and I'm like carrying tickets, and now I'm in the theater. I'm on the marquee. I'm going, how'd this happen? It's amazing. And this was also on the West Coast, in Westwood. In 1 year, my life exploded for the better. So I tell people, you never know. You just never know if you're going to hit the lottery. You just got to keep buying tickets. You got to keep going for it. Yeah, I used to cut my own hair. I know. Don't comment on it. It was too cheap to hire a barber at the time. I didn't know any better. You're on the lobby just greeting customers. I felt like, hey, thank you for showing up. I didn't know how long it was to last. I didn't know it was going to be as successful. You're a very lucky person when you can find out the best friend you ever had is some character that just popped out of your mind. Someone who was always there when things got rough and never quit on you. That's why I look at Rocky as my best friend.
And the winner is Rocky Irwin Winkler and Robert Chardoff.
To all the Rockies in the world, I love you.